bass players always go crazy in this last 20 seconds. I'm always hanging on to every note they play. Welcome back to Low End University. About a year and a half ago, I first heard the Interrupters and totally loved the fact that there was a newer, more modern band carrying the torch for ska punk, but I suddenly started getting a zillion requests for the band The Distillers, as I imagine vocalists Brody Dahl and Amy Allen maybe have similar styles vocally, naturally. At least that's what I gleaned from some of your comments. However, I'm curious how the two compare musically, and everyone's asked for Sick of It All, which is from the band's second studio album, Sing Sing Death House, released in 2002 on Hellcat Records. But the making of this album in particular sounded really frustrating, rushed and recorded in a single week and then delayed for 9 months by the label, but maybe it allowed it to resonate more authentically or come across that way as it did in the press with AllMusic, stating that the album is a quote-unquote story with an uncharacteristic ending, that punks born of squalor can rise up and create music as impassioned and relatively positive as this. But I'm excited to hear it. Without further ado, here is the opening track from the album, Sick of It All, from The Distillers. Sick of It All. Okay, I'm a big thrash metalhead. We've been over this. Man, I really like the thrash feel of this. Really energetic, almost reminds me musically of Pennywise, but just bass lines that really pop. Maybe a bit more than Pennywise would. That's just my first impression. Yeah, I don't think the Interrupters vocally remind me of this at all. I don't know if it's just the female vocalist thing that some of the comments were comparing it to, but I know I started getting a ton of requests for the Distillers on that video, and ever since then. It was between this and I think City of Angels. I think they're both from the same album. I'm going to go back to the beginning. This has like a P-bass tone, but not with like its typical, overdrive channel grit on. It sounds a little more clean and hi-fi, but just maybe some really intense EQ. Like it has kind of a clean character to it. It's got this woofy bottom end that's kind of pummeling through the mix, and it's all over the place. Lots of energy. Let me start this one back over. Pick, of course. Here in the key of E, E minor. Sounds very thrashy in the key of E. Yep. Right into the riff. Bouncing everywhere. Okay, listen to the tone carefully. It sounds like P-bass to me again. You can hear it cutting through with some high end, but it's not like fuzzy, it's clean. But what I do hear is that low end, like more low end than usual on a P-bass tone. I think a lot of people record with a P-bass because it fits into the mix nicely. They have since day one. The P-bass is where it's at if you just want like plug and play. That's what any producer would probably tell you. Even though they're not my favorite basses, I've come around to them. But this is really leaning into that low-end natural character they provide. And it almost sounds like the bass player, I think Ryan Sin, who played on this. I think a lot of players will play back toward the bridge, even on a P-bass. It kind of thins it out a bit. Of course, I'm on a Stingray. I've got a P-bass over there. I don't feel like getting it. We're going to roll with the Stingray today. But if you pluck closer to the neck on a P-bass, the low end gets really uncontrollable. But if you compress it right and have good technique and such, it really pummels through. You can just listen to it. You hear the low end just kind of billowing out under the mix back there. Kind of like Matt Freeman a little bit. Like Matt Freeman tone sometimes. Yeah, the difference between versus, and if I pluck even up here, it just gets boomier the higher up I go. So I imagine the bass player might be playing a little closer up. That's just what my ears tell me. But pentatonic riff as well. Kind of going up to that B. Some nice hits there. Very cool. All right. Sick of it all. Yeah, dig. Some little bouncy stuff. Something like that. So if I kind of EQ'd my bass, maybe just to get a little closer to that, I would really focus on these low mids. You don't want to get too woofy with the bass. But the low mids, you hear the difference? Lots of low mid versus like none. You kind of lose the thump. So low mids are your friend. A lot of people just pull all the mids out and do this, which is a proper tone for the right context. But I really like the low mids here, so I'm going to just lean into those a bit. Maybe some presence, but not too much treble. And I might put the drive channel on just for a smidge of overdrive. Maybe crank the edge so it's really firing there, but don't put too much of it in. So you get more of this kind of like you can hear the drive back there. I need just a little more bass maybe. So I'm going to hit this little bump voice control on the GK Legacy 800. It's really great to just add in some. So a little bit more in the ballpark now. Again, more of a finger player. I'm going to try to kind of follow along with pick as best as I can, but let's start there. Get that kind of woofy thing. Okay, change the notes here. We've been around E minor, this sort of haven't really given you an F per se, but you hear in that fill in the bass, it's an F sharp, so that leads me to believe it's really an E minor, thrash in E minor. That's very common. But they go up to that flat 2 now, which is that Phrygian sound. So in the same sentence, we have F sharp, F natural, changes it up, makes it a little bit darker. You can hear the shift here. The F sharp's in the bass fill somewhere here, which is just giving me data, right? That's all I'm trying to figure out. Right there. You hear the... It was very quick, but I heard it right here. Okay. Hold that thought. You hear that change. We got a little more Slayer now. We got a little more early Metallica now. So you hear that tonal change, and it's really the bass that gave it away earlier. I would have never really known. So really just leaning into that early classic thrash sound. I'm not mad at that. I love that. Her vocals are interesting. They're so powerful. Really good, kind of harsh, pitched thing, just riding the tightrope of intense, aggressive. But I can hear some like singing happening very, very in the background. It's very, from what I know to be classic punk. I'm still a newbie at this, but I dig the intensity. Okay. Yeah, a little bit more of that singing now with some of the edge and harshness there. Kind of that gruff. She does it really well. I like her voice a lot. It's more harsh than I expected with so many people, saying, hey, you've heard the Interrupters. You really like the Interrupters. Come check out the Distillers. But, I've only heard one song by each band, so probably an unfair comparison. Let's keep going. Oop, what did I do here? Hit a button. tag, little triplet thing. I keep coming back to Matt Freeman just on the bassist style, this sort of, you're plucking just kind of constantly and filling in the notes. You get a lot of extra ghost notes in there. This kind of thing. I kind of learned that when I first heard, Maxwell Murder. The whole solo is just him going like this. And I know you guys are about to mention, she was married to Tim Armstrong. Like, I've kind of read into the whole bio, Josh Homme. That was a lot to take in. But it still, even aside that, the Rancid Matt Freeman comparison on bass reminds me of that. Maybe some of the early Operation Ivy. Early Operation Ivy. There's only one album, Mark. Anyway, his tone reminds me of that a bit too. That woofy P-bass thing. A little grit, but not like modern drive kind of thing. Anyway, I like it. It's a unique style that's very hard to replicate for me. And they have such a way of getting those notes to choke up a bit. It's almost like, I would say this about Matt Freeman too, but Ryan Sin here, it's almost like they're palm muting just a little bit under the way they pluck and choke the notes off. It's not open like this. You don't hear that just open. You hear this kind of like just this mojo happening here, and you get these little popcorn notes just popping out of the mix. Boom, gunk, gunk. It's almost funky in a way. I can't recreate it with a pick, but do a little right hand muting here. Maybe some left hand muting, but it's got a style, and it just really makes the bass punch. Liking the way the bass sits in the mix. Yeah, Brody. Lots of vocal versatility here. Just, again, riding the tightrope. Just kind of gruff, breathy, with a little bit of pitched melody happening. Then starting back in the first verse, it was very harsh and more aggressive. This is kind of a mix of that. This kind of like trailing off at the end. I don't know how to describe it. Not a vocal channel, but I just try to make it a point to talk about it, because I'll go through a whole song with just talking about the bass line, and they're like, you didn't even talk about the lyrics or the singer or the drummer or the guitar player or the producer or the mastering engineer. Just trying my best, but really like this. More of a halftime straightforward bridge thing here. Can follow along a bit better. Sounds like the bassist is abandoning this, this fast weaving in between, subdividing, kind of galloping thing. A little more straight now. And to get that tone, I'm really kind of flicking my wrist. There's a difference between picking a note like, then you're just kind of like flicking it. It's almost like you're trying to flick a fly that landed on your string off the string. Just kind of beating the bass a little bit. Really just swinging the wrist faster to kind of make that low end. You know what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. All right. Ooh, love that sort of counterpoint vocal melody thing. She introduced the main vocal line. It's either her doubling herself or someone else. I don't know, but it just adds so much energy in the vocal production. It veered off right here. I almost didn't catch it. I was so busy playing bass. That's kind of cool. You hear the major third of E major. Then they go to the G and they do the octave, so it goes down a half step. And then down another half step chromatically. If I'm hearing that right. So it's actually chromatic in the vocal line, but the way the chords change under it, it doesn't sound so abrasive. You don't hear. You hear. So major chord, E major, G, and then D major. So that's just really cool voice leading there. I'm talking about this background vocal melody under her main one now. Down a half step. Dig that stuff. Ooh. Back to it. I bet the song's ending. Bass players always go crazy in this last 20 seconds. We got to start the song with that or make the song longer. I'm always hanging on to every note they play. He's going nuts here. What's happening? Just shredding it. Golly. Just going nuts. I'll never get the notes, but I mean, it's making the song become popcorn here at the end. I'm being facetious when I say we should start the song with that. You know, you got to stick down and be the wall of sound, hold it down. And it's just customary. That's the time, that's the bassist's time to shine at the end. You've already established all the themes and the chorus and the verses. Just let loose. Let them go ham. Let's see. I'm always really going to love any of the punk bands you guys show me when they really have that classic thrash sound shining through. But I've heard enough punk now to know that's a bit more of a classic punk sound. And again, if you've been here long enough, you'll understand what I'm about to say. But I used to think punk was just a really specific sound, like Sex Pistols or Ramones. That's what I had first heard. I didn't really like it. I probably would appreciate it a lot more now. But hearing how far the punk scene has branched out, it's really more about the culture and the ethos and the attitude and such. And the music just almost comes secondary to that. So I like bands that still kind of have what I think to be a more classic punk sound, which is rooted in thrash. You know, they were on the same street, different block. I was very close. I was just getting into the big four, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, and such back then. Nonetheless, it always strikes a really cool chord with me when I hear bands like Pennywise and now the Distillers that remind me of that same type of thing. So this is a really fun band. Let me know where I should go next with this band. I know they disbanded not long after this album, mid-2000s I was reading. They've reunited at some point down the line, maybe more recently. I read all of the bio stuff yesterday before I filmed this, but thank you guys for hanging out with me today. We finally crossed the Distillers off my list. I would love to come back and do more. And if you'd like to support the channel further, come find us on Patreon. I have lessons there, music theory lessons and such if you want to learn from me in that way. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video. I love you all. We'll see you in the next one.